As you may be aware of already, Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa suffered a second concussion in 5 days last night in the Thursday night football game against the Cincinnati Bengals. And the actions taken by both the NFL and the Miami Dolphins coaching staff leading up until this second concussion were reprehensible and just egregious. And I think there needs to be further consequences taken by both the league and by the NFL Players Association filing grievance for the Miami quarterback. The first one took place against the Buffalo Bills on Sunday, where you can see he had whiplash on his head, and the second one you can see pictured currently, where he was tackled down by Cincinnati Bengals defensive lineman Josh Tupou, and it was a completely illegal tackle. Nothing really bad about that, so no blame should be credited to the Cincinnati defensive lineman. It was completely fine, but he wouldn't have been in that situation had he not gone through the proper protocols and had to sit out. The first one, you can see he's stumbling right there after getting whiplash on his head. His teammates have to hold him up, and he's obviously in a lot of pain and is suffering a concussion. And then you see the one from last night where he form tackles him and obviously hits his head after being spun around. And then immediately goes into what they call a fencing posture, where his fingers are obviously it's not pretty to watch. I'm sorry I have it on repeat, but it needs to be reinforced for effect so you can see. But obviously is hitting his head pretty hard on the ground and then goes into that position. It's a neurological response from what I gather, and obviously signs of a neurological injury and a concussion. And you can see here he's being stretchered and be taken to the hospital. Thankfully, he did get discharged from the hospital last night and will be flying back with the team after the game. But at this point, he needs to sit out several weeks and get this taken care of, because you don't want this to develop into a further issue, and that's why the league needs to be fined, I believe, and the Miami coaching staff needs to be held responsible for this, and the team itself, including the owner, because letting somebody out back on the field like that just a few days after having a concussion, this is obviously the result of that, and it's just uncalled for, and things need to be resolved in the league. They're obviously trying to get better with concussion protocols and things of that nature, but obviously there's some failings there. I had a concussion when I was younger, playing baseball in right field. Went to dive for the ball in the outfield, and the center fielder, I collided with his knee and went out like a light. And I was probably out for like 20 seconds, and at least the coaches and the players, for me, had the wherewithal to tell me to sit out the rest of the game. And I remember days after, I was still concussed and was still pretty wobbly. So I can only imagine what Tagovailoa was going through. And then he continued the game, kept playing after that hit in the Buffalo game. So he kept getting hit in the head repeatedly after that. And then obviously several days later, he has a concussion again. And I don't care what the NFL says. Oh, it was a back injury. I call BS on that. That's just them covering their own, what. So I just wanted to highlight this first before I go into some stories here about the injury and their concussion protocol. So let's switch over here to the first story. This first story comes from CBSSports.com, and I wanted to highlight a few key points of it. First being Teddy Bridgewater, who replaced Tagovailoa in the game after he was taken off on the stretcher. And he himself actually suffered a major concussion, had to be stretchered off last year. So it was a pretty scary situation there as well. I don't know how similar it was, but he does talk about it a little bit in this article here. So I wanted to highlight it. He's talking about, it's a scary part of the game. He did throw for 193, a touch and an interception after he came in to replace him. They ended up losing, though, last night. The Bengals came back with 3 fourth quarter touchdowns. But, coming in like that, just no warm-up or anything, it's kind of tough. But, Bridgewater's a good quarterback. He's definitely a great backup for Miami and, will be serviceable moving forward for the team. But just wanted to highlight one thing here. So he was talking about his experience when he had a concussion, and this is pretty telling. So they were asking him, if he remembered anything, as to what was going on right after he had the concussion. And he said, "I can't answer that because I didn't remember anything until I woke up at the hospital," he said. "They said I woke up in the back of the truck, but I don't remember anything. I got my CAT scan and MRI." So he was out for minutes, several minutes. He can't, of his memory is gone. He can't remember anything. I remember when I got concussed, I was out, and next thing I know, my coach was in the outfield already. So that's why I think it was out for at least for like 20 seconds, because my coach was like 70 years old at the time. He wasn't exactly a sprinter. So I was probably out for a good long time there. And obviously Bridgewater says he doesn't even remember. He woke up at the hospital, he says. So it's a huge gap right there of memory loss. So I'm sure he was conscious, but he doesn't remember anything. It's pretty scary stuff when you get hit like that. And I wanted to play this clip here too. This is from the Miami Dolphins head coach, Mike McDaniel. And you can't really hear the journalist question, but he's asking him if he would have done anything differently in the Buffalo game when Tua first got injured. So I'm going to go ahead and blow this up here and play the clip. And this is Coach Mike McDaniel's response to if he would have done anything differently.
You feel like in hindsight you maybe should have done or could have done differently after he went down the first?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If I would have, that would be irresponsible in the first place, and I shouldn't be in this position. I do not have any, absolutely zero patience for or will ever put a player in a position to, for them to be in harm's way. That is not what I'm about at all, and no outcome of a game would ever influence me being irresponsible as the head coach of the football team.
So the good news, Tua expect to be released from the hospital.
So you can see, obviously, he kind of talks himself in circles here with that response. And, it makes no sense. First he says he wouldn't have done anything differently. Taking him out of the game because he obviously went back in after the first concussion. And, and then he wouldn't have done anything differently, but then he's worried about his player safety, and that's his primary concern. So obviously you're contradicting yourselves. Which one is it? So obviously he wanted to win the game. That's his job, but it comes to a point where you have to worry about these people's health, mental health, their physical health. If you're not familiar who Jim McMahon was, he was the quarterback of the Bears back in 1985 when they won the Super Bowl. And forgive that impression, by the way. I don't do as good as Chris Farley. So he was a quarterback, and he had suffered several concussions. And he's attributed to at least 5 concussions in his career where he got one and then continued to play in the game. If you're not familiar with after his career, he had early signs of dementia, admittedly, he admitted, and was part of the NFL's concussion lawsuit where they won over $700 million. So obviously that's what brought about the changes with the helmets and the protocols that they have now. But obviously things like this still happen. And I just don't want Tua to have the same outcome as Jim McMahon did, where his brain is obviously not what it should be, and is forgetting when friends text him. He can't remember people he meets. 2 minutes later, he'll forget who he just met. So it's pretty scary stuff there. So it's I just wanted to highlight that response. So that's what the coach said in response to. Now, this next story from the Daily Mail. This is the NFL's response. So apparently Miami did follow concussion protocol with Tua, says the NFL, despite them coming back on the field. So, teammates had to held him up, which I mentioned already. They did beat Buffalo in that game. It's a great game. But they said he passed concussion protocol and just had a back injury. Yeah, right. So it's ridiculous that, that they're just coming. This is their line of what they say. So, the Bills player did get a roughing the passer penalty, so that was an illegal play. The one with Cincinnati, no flag was thrown because that was an illegal form tackle. He just spun him around, and, obviously having been previously concussed, he was sensitive to that, and that's what caused the issue. Tua doesn't even really kind of remember what happened too when he was talking to reporters after. But wanted to highlight this too. So this is Chris Nowinski, a Harvard-educated neuroscientist. He is a critic of the NFL's handling of concussions. But this is what he tweeted after the game. I'm calling BS on the back tweak theory. Watch the vid. Tua shakes his head multiple times to clear the cobwebs, which is a specific sign of vision impairment after the concussion. He also wobbles, getting up before falling. His return is a fail. And I agree 100%. It is a fail on the NFL's part. He is a young player, and the NFL has a lot behind him. He's very popular. If this happened to the third string tight end, I think it'd be a different story. But because he's an up-and-coming prospect in the NFL, is one of the quarterbacks of the future, as we have Tom Brady now still playing, but being phased out pretty soon. He's not going to be playing in the next 5 years. Tua is going to be the future of the NFL. So that's why I want his health to be protected, because he's a great player. I want to see him succeed. But just how they handle that is pretty ridiculous. And just wanted to cover this this final part here, also from the Daily Mail. This happened after the fact. So this one was from Wednesday, before the game, and then this is their response after the game. So you can see the coins flipped here. We'll get better. NFL's chief medical officer tells DailyMail.com the league will learn from Tua's sickening head injury. And obviously, the people saying that he should get they should get jail time, that's a little egregious. Nobody should go to jail over this, but I think there should be some changes being made, and most importantly, there should be some fines levied. The NFL should be fined a minimum of $10 million, probably more. Probably, I'd be happy with $20 million at this point, because they make so much damn money, and that money should be donated to concussion research. So that would be the first part. Now, the second part is the Miami Dolphins. They are being held responsible as well. Tua is a grown man. He made that own decision himself to get up and play in the game. So there is partial blame for him. But the Dolphins medical coaching staff and the owner should have consequences as well. Should be a fine as well. But they also should lose draft picks. And I'm not talking the 7th round draft pick in 2025. I'm talking about a 1st and 2nd round draft pick of next year. So if you have that hanging over your head, the owners will make sure that they stay out of the game, because the owners don't want to lose draft picks, especially if they're a 1st and 2nd round draft pick. That's how you build the future of your teams. So if you threaten them with losing draft picks for these actions, they'll wisen up real quick. It won't take that long. I mean, money is money, but draft picks is another thing, because that's even more money, and that's future money. And not having draft picks will severely set back your franchise. If you don't have 1st and 2nd round draft picks, it's going to hurt. So I think that's the next course of action that needs to be followed up. The Players Association needs to file grievance against this and needs to lobby for that. And also the public, you need to voice your concern about this and let them know that these actions need to be taken. So, however you do it, if it's online or if you, want to write to the office, however you want to do it, you need to let them know about this, because this is insane. So just looking here at the story, just pretty insane what's happening here. But so just wanted to highlight this as well, this story. But those are my thoughts on this. That's going to do it though for this video. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Hit that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Comment down below if you're an NFL fan. If you're not an NFL fan, would love to hear your thoughts about what's going on with this and what if you agree with me, disagree with me. Please let me know down in the comments. And thanks for watching, and everyone take care.